Hello, developers. How are you? I trust you are doing fine. Today we'll start our projects and we'll start with the first project, that is the calculator app. So I hope you'll enjoy it. So without much ado, let's dive in. If you're following the course, you're aware there's a repo that we forked, and the repo contains the boilerplate for this app. The boilerplate includes the HTML and the CSS. They're here. So if you have that repo, you can just pull the changes. And if you don't have it, I'll attach the link of the repo in the video description. So let's start. So once you pull the changes, you'll see that you'll have a folder called calculator app, and the folder has 4 files. One is index.html, then there's index.js and styles.css, and there's a readme file there. And the index.js, the index.html is just contains a div of class container that wraps the whole application. Then there's another div of class grade that also wraps the whole calculator. Then there is an input or a text input to display the expression that you're writing. Then there is a div for displaying the answer. Then there is these card buttons here, the buttons that we click 0 to 9. Then there is the operators like multiply, divide, add, subtract. There's this decimal, and there's the clear and the all clear button. Yeah, so that is it with the HTML. For the CSS, I just use the grid layout to style my buttons. You can see I use the name template areas there to style the buttons. Then each button is a flex container that is centered and has a padding. You can see it in the CSS there. Also, when you hover the button, it changes to gray and it has a border of white. Yeah, I think that's it with the CSS. You can just look at it. That is how it is. Yeah, and that is how you can see the JJS is just empty, and this is the file that we'll be writing in this tutorial. So that much ado, let's just start writing our JavaScript. This is how the interface looks like for the calculator. Currently, when you click this button, nothing happens. That is the functionality that will add. But you can see when I hover, the white border is being displayed there, and the expression will be written here. Here is how the expression will be written, and the answer will be written here. So if you click something, it should display here in the expression input. Then after doing the calculations, the answer should be displayed here. So let us go and start writing our logic. So before you start coding, you usually have an algorithm or a step-by-step procedure of how you'll solve your problem. So that is what I've done. I have just created a markdown file. I've named it algo.md, short form for algorithm markdown file. Then inside that file, I've written some steps that will follow to complete this application. So you can see the first step is to add event listeners. So in these buttons will listen for the click event. When someone clicks the button, something happens. So when someone clicks the button, we'll listen to that event. And if the button is equal sign, we'll call the calculate function. If the button is the SC, we'll call the all clear function. If the button clicked is the C, we'll call the clear function. And if it's any other button, we'll call the display function. That is the logic of how we want to implement our application. Then we'll declare the variables and we'll get the DOM elements. This is the second step. Then the third step is to implement these functions. So the first function that we'll implement will be the display function. And that is the steps of how we'll do the display function. Then we'll do the calculate function and the clear and the all clear functions. So after I implement all those functions, I think by then our app will be complete. Maybe we'll just have to refactor a little bit. Maybe you can add something like refactor code here, but that is not actually a step, so I'll not add it. So this is the steps, because refactoring and maintaining is just a non-stop process, so that will be an everyday work, so we'll just leave it there. So this is the algorithm that we'll be following. And it's good practice for you to first write down your algorithm before you write any code. And that is the approach that I've used. So now, since you have the step-by-step procedure, you can now start writing our JavaScript code. I just opened this file using the Markdown previewer that we installed in the beginning of the course. If you don't have this, you can just go to extensions and search for Markdown previewer, and you can install any of these. I'm using this one for math, but you can install any one, it will just work the same. Okay, that is the extension that you'll use to preview the Markdown, and the file that you'll be writing is the JavaScript file. So I'll just move this file here and I'll close this one. So you can see I have my HTML here, my JavaScript here, and my algorithms here that will guide me to write the code. So I think we should start writing our code. So we'll just follow the steps that we wrote here one by one, and by the end we'll have completed the app. So as you can see in our algorithm, the first thing is to add the event listeners. So before you add the event listeners, you have to get the buttons from the DOM first. So if you look at our HTML, let me just soft wrap so that you can see it, all of it. If you look at this HTML, you can see all the buttons have this class called add button. So we'll select all the buttons because all of them have this class. So I'll just select it in the HTML. I'll just we'll save them to a variable called buttons. So I'll just call that variable buttons because they are buttons. Then you'll use the query selector all. And I'll select add buttons. Let me just copy the name so that I don't miss the spelling. I'll just paste it there. Yeah, let me also soft wrap here. Or I can just reduce this. Yeah, I think that is fine. So here I've selected all the buttons. I can just console log it for you to see them. Buttons. So you can go to the browser and see what has been logged before you continue. So if you go to the browser and open the developer options, if you open the console, you can see that in the console there is a node list that contains all our buttons. There are 18 buttons. If you hover, you can see each button is then displayed here in the calculator. If I hover this, you can see it's SC. All of them are displayed there. And the reason I logged it onto you to see it's a node list. A node list, it's not an array, but it has some method that you can use. For example, if you use the query select, if for the node list, you can use this method called for each. And that is the reason that we didn't use the get element by class name, because get element by class name returns a HTML collection, and the HTML collection does not offer you this method. That's why we use the query selector all for it, because query selector all returns a node list, and a node list gives us this method here called for each that we can use to loop these elements to get each individual element. I think that is clear. So let's go back to our code and continue writing it. So you have seen this variable is a node list. This buttons variable is a node list, and since it's a node list, you can loop through it. So I'll use the for each. I use the for each method to loop through each button. So I'll give a button, then we'll return a specific button, not buttons, button, one button, each button. Yeah. And for each button, I'll add an event listener, and we'll listen for the click event. It has to be in quotes. Listen for the click event, and we'll do something. I'll put a function here like that. Yeah. So we selected all the buttons here using the query selector all, and we stored the results to a variable called buttons. And since you have seen that buttons is a node list, so we can use the for each to loop through that node list. And for each button, we want to add an event listener, and we listen for the click event. And when that button is clicked, we can do something, and that is the function. That is this function here. We'll implement it. So I think it's clear. So you can just start implementing our function. So inside the function body, first I'll create a variable. call it symbol. And I want to get the context of that button that has been clicked. I'll say this dot text content, like that. So here, okay, let me just log this symbol first. I think I missed. It should be this dot get context. This dot text content, not that one. Should be text content, like that. Yeah. This dot text content to get the, for example, if this 7 has been clicked, the context of this div is this value, is this string here, 7. That is the content, and that is what we want to get. And after getting that, you want to store it in this variable called symbol. And currently, you want to log it. So, but in this context, you have to use the old function syntax, because I think you're taught about this keyword and how its scope is affected when you use the ordinary function and the arrow function. So let me just go to the browser and see that if I click a button, it should log it. So let me just go to the browser and show you this. So you can see that if I click a button, I've opened the console. If I click like something like 7, you can see it. If I click 4, it displays 4. If I click 9, it logs 9. So you can see our event listener is working. It's working fine, and it's getting the button that has been clicked and it's displaying it. I think that is fine. But if you use the arrow function, let us use the arrow function and see how this will behave. Let's go and change our code and try to use the arrow function. So if you use an arrow function, the syntax will be like this. It will be like that. Yeah. I just changed it to an arrow function. I didn't interfere with the logic. I just changed the arrow function. So let's go to the browser and see how this will behave. So if now I click 7, you can see it displays undefined. It does not get the context because it's the thing for the scope. The value of this is the document because I'm using the arrow function. But if you want to maintain the scope, you have to use the old syntax of writing function, not using the arrow function. I think you are taught about that, so I won't emphasize it too much. So we'll just change our code back to the old way of writing functions. So let's go back to our code and change it. So I'll just remove this arrow here and write the keyword function here. Yeah, and that will be fine. We already tested it and we saw that it worked. So according to our algorithm here, now you have already got this buttons down that has been clicked. You have done step 1 is done. This one for attaching event listeners to all buttons. You've already done this one. Now the next thing is this one. When a button is clicked, retrieve the symbol associated with that button. You already done that. So the next one is this. We want to check if the button was clicked is equal sign. So to check, you can use the switch case or the if else. I prefer using if else. So I'll say if. Remember that the button clicked, we have stored it to this variable called symbol. So I'll say if symbol. I'll use the strict equal. If symbol is strictly equal to is equal sign, call the calculate function, like that. But you'll keep in mind that currently we don't have this function, but we'll create it in a few minutes. Let's first complete this one, and that is the work of the algorithm. It gives you the step-by-step procedure for how to do things. I know that this function will create it later. If you go in the steps below there, you can see there's someone that will create this function. So let's just be patient. We'll just create it. So the next step is to check if it is SC. So I'll just copy paste this one, but I'll say else if I missed the spelling, else if the symbol is what? Else if the symbol is SC, you want it to call the all clear function. Yeah. And if the symbol is C, call the clear function. So I'll just paste this one. If the symbol is just C, call the clear function. like that. And for any other button, it's called the display function. So I'll just put here else, and I'll say if it's any other button called the display function, like that. And by that, I believe that, and if you read this display function is saying, call the display function with the clicked symbol. So that means that this display function will take an argument of the symbol. That is how a function will be. So by that, I believe that we have already completed the first step of algorithm, and it's okay. So you can go to the next step, that is to do the variable initialization. But before that, let me create these functions first. So I'll just create them up here. So I'll just say const display is equals to an arrow function. I'll just use the arrow functions for these functions. 1, 2, 3, 4. I believe there are 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So I'll just create the display, then the calculate, then I'll create the clear, then the clear, all clear, not clear all clear. That. So I've just created the 4 functions that are supposed to call them. So we'll just write the function body of each function one by one, and I'll start with the display function. And we know that the display function takes symbol as an argument. So let me just get some space here. Yeah. So we'll start with the display function. So the display function, its work, like just like the name says, you can look here in the step 3. You can say the display function has to accept a symbol as input. It has already accepted that symbol as the argument. Then what this function does, it's supposed to display the clicked symbol here on this input. Where is it? Here on this input. I showed you that the input is the one that displays the expression, then this displays the answer. So when someone clicks a button, it should be displayed here on this input. So that is the whole idea of this display. So yeah, so first you can get this input here, because we want to add a value to that input. So you have to get that input first. So I'll just go to my JS. Then on top of the display, I can just say const, I'll call it expression input, like that. Then I'll use the get element by ID, and its ID is, I'll just copy it. Its ID is expression, like that. I'll paste it here. So now I have this input here. So the work of this display is to get the symbol and place it on that input. I can just do something like this. I can say expression input. And when you're learning about the inputs in HTML, we say that input has an attribute called name and another attribute called value. And in HTML, we explained both the name and the value in detail. And I told you that the name is mostly used for the backend part to get the exact input, and the value is used to change the value of that input. So currently I want to change the value of this input. So I'll use the value attribute, and to access it in JavaScript, you say dot value, like that. You have to put a dot here, not a comma. So the value of that will be there with the symbol, just like that. So now when I click a symbol, let's say I click 7, the value 7, the value of that symbol will be written, will be the text of that button clicked will be the value of this input. I think it's clear, but you can just go to the browser and see how that behaves. So if you go to the browser, you can see now if I click like 7, you can see now it displays here 7. Because this input changed its value to be the value of the button that has been clicked. So if I click 8, its value will be 8, 9, its value will be 9. Anything that I click, its value will be that value. But when I click something like is equal, it won't display anything. Because keep in mind that the display function is only called when I click these numbers or these signs. If I click the AC, nothing will happen because the AC does not call the display function. The C does not call the display function, and the is equal does not call the display function. Only these buttons, the dark gray ones and the gray ones, are the ones that call the display function. I think that is clear. But currently you can see that our display function has a small bug, because if I say 78, it just writes 7, then it overwrites the value to 8. It cannot write two values at the same time, and that is a bug. So we can correct that bug by adding a variable that will store the things that you click, then it will display them in the input. So you can just go to our code and do that. So let's go back to our code. So in our code, you can create a variable here. I'll use the let because I want it to change. Let's say let expression. I'll call it expression, and I'll set its initial value to an empty string. Yeah. Then here in the display function, I don't want to display the symbol, and the expression to concatenate with the symbol like that. Then I display the expression. I think that is clear. So when someone clicks something like 5, it will not display 5 directly here. It will look at the value of the expression, and the initial value is an empty string. So it will say empty string plus 5, and that will be 5. Then that value of 5 will be stored in the variable expression. Then that is what will be displayed in the input. If someone clicks something like 5 then 2, the expression will be 5. It will be add. Then later it will be 5 plus 2. Then the value of the expression will be 52. Then that 52 is the one that will be displayed here. This plus here is concatenating the string. It's not actually adding them because all of them are strings, so they'll be concatenated. They'll just be joined together. If it's 5 plus 2, it will be 52. So you can just go to the browser, and you can see that this one will have solved our bug. So you can just go to the browser and see how this looks like. Now if you go to the browser and I click something like 7, then 5, you can see that it's writing 75. Initially it was writing 7, then it was overwriting it to 5, but now it's writing all the 2 at the same time. So 75 times 2, you can see it's writing all the expression, and that is the thing that we wanted. So I believe now our display is working fine. So you can go to the next function, that is the calculate function. So our display is fine, so you can go to the next function, that is the calculate function. So let's go back to our code and implement the calculate function. So if you look at the algorithm, you can see all the tasks for the display function have been completed, and that is what we wanted to do. It displays, so it works fine. So the next one will be the calculate function. So the calculate function does not take any argument, and it will only be called when someone clicks the is equal. So if you click is equal, is when this function will be called, and it will use this eval function. So eval is a JavaScript function that evaluates an expression. And you see now it has made our work easier, because if you're using something like Java or maybe C, you had to do this manually, but now we have this function that makes our work easier. So you'll not do the addition, the multiplication, the division manually by yourselves, but JavaScript has got this function that will do all the calculations for us. So this will just be easy. I'll just do something like eval. I'll call this eval function, and I'll call it with the expression that is there, and that is it with the calculate. So this one will evaluate the expression, but keep in mind it has not stored the value anywhere, so you have to store the value somewhere. So I'll store the value in a variable called, we'll just call it answer. First I'll declare the variable here. I'll say let answer, and initial value for answer to be 0. Then later I'll change that value of answer. I missed the spelling. Answer, yeah. So initially the answer will be 0, but now if you put an expression, then you call this eval function. It will evaluate that expression, then it will store the answer to this variable called answer. We can just log the answer to see it works. Let me log it first. So let's go to the browser and see how it works. So if you go to the browser, you can see if I do something like 7 plus 2, our display is working fine. And when I click is equal, it will call the calculate function, and you can see displays here in the console 9. So I think that it's working fine for addition. Let me try for multiplication. I'll do until I refresh the page, because we have not done functionalities for this. So I'll try to do 7 times 8. I can see it's 56. So I can see multiplication is fine. I'll just refresh, because I have not done these functionalities for here. We'll do it later. Something like 5 divide 2 does 2.5. It's fine. What if I divide by 0? If I send something like 7 divide 0, you can see it says infinity. So it also handles for for the division by 0. So the val function does all the math for us. Which one did I not test? I think I tested all of this. I didn't test subtraction. So if I say 8, subtract from 5, see that it will say 3. So you can see that the eval function does all this calculation for us. So now instead of logging the answer, we want to display the answer here. So first we have to get this input, then we'll change its value to the answer. So let's do that. So the first thing that I'll do, I'll get this one. Where is it? It has an ID of answer. So I'll just copy that ID and use the get element by ID to get it. So I'll say something like document dot get element by ID. Then I'll paste the ID there. Then I'll save it to a variable called answer display. Answer display. Don't mind my naming. You can just come with your own creative names. That is the name that I came up with. You can just come up with your own name if you don't see that name to be good for you. So now you have this div. So we want to change this value from 0 to the value of the answer. So it's just simple. You can use either in HTML or text content, either that you prefer. So since you use text content here, let's just maintain text content. So where is it? So instead of logging the answer, I want to do something like answer display dot text content, and say text content will equal to the answer. That so that way you'll have displayed our answer there. I think that one is fine. You can go to the browser to confirm that. So when someone does something like 8 times 5, it will display 40. So you can see now it's working fine. Instead of logging it, it's displaying it here in the answer. So that works fine. So you can just proceed. I believe our calculate function is over. So you can work with this clear and the all clear functions. So let's start with the clear one. So actually in the algorithm they say we start with the all clear. So I'll just stop the order, but the order does not matter. You can just start with anyone. So let's start with the all clear because you want to follow this algorithm that we wrote. You can see in the calculate function there's some steps that we need to do. We'll just come back to them. Let's first finish the basic functionalities. So for the all clear, we want when someone clicks the all clear button, you want it to clear the expression and the answer. So that is just simple. If someone clicks the all clear, you want to set the expression to be the initial state. So I'll just say expression. I'll set it to an empty string. Because if someone wrote like 7 times 2, and if I press all clear, I want it to be just 0. So it will be nothing. So that's why I've set it to an empty string. Then what else? We also want the answer to be 0. We reset the answer display. So also you can say also we want the answer to be 0. Like that. Also, this has not updated the interface. So if for us to update the interface, you can just reuse this code here. You can just copy this code. Maybe I put it here. Then this one for answer also, I put it here like that. And I believe this one is clear. So you first set the expression to an empty string, then you update the user interface by changing its value to expression that which is now currently an empty string. Then you want to set the answer to 0, and then to change also the text content of the answer to be the value of the answer, which is now 0. So you can just test if it works. So you can go to the browser and test this code. So if someone does something like 8 divide 2 and they press AC, you see it clears it. So 8 divide 5 is equals 1.6. If I say all clear, it resets both the answer and the expression, and that is how we wanted it to be. So I think the all clear functionality is done. So now the next functionality is this one for clear. So for clear, for example, I did say 7 times 5, then I press 2 accidentally. I just want to delete only this one value here. I don't want to delete all of it. I just want to delete only one value. That's why I'll press clear. But currently it's not working, so you have to implement that. So let's go to our code and implement that logic. So since the expression is a string, you can use the methods for string to remove the last character. but I prefer using the slice because the slice is easy to use. So I believe we all know about the slice, so I'll just use the slice. So, and we know that the slice does not change the value of the string. So if I say something like slice, I'll put the initial start and it start from the first one and to the last one. The last one I'll use the -1 because I don't know the length of the string, so I'll just go the -1 to mean the last element. Then since it does not mutate the string, I'll have to reassign it to another variable. So I'll just reassign it to this variable called expression, like that. So now it will remove the last character of the expression, then reassign the new string to that existing string. I think it's clear. So after doing that, I'll just display. So I'll just copy this code and paste it here, like that. So what we have done, if someone, for example, someone did something like, let's say someone did something like 4 minus 3, then clicks this C, which clicks the C button, this button, which calls the clear function, and what the clear function will do will just remove this last one, so it will be 4 minus. So that is what we have done using the slice method, and I believe we all know about the slice method. And if you have forgotten about the slice method, you can just check the video that we talked about the slice method. Yeah, so that is what we want for this clear. I think that's the only thing that we want. So you can just go to the browser and to see if this one works well. So if you go to the browser, you can see when someone says 7, 8, then for example, I pressed 8 by mistake and to delete, I just click the second. You see, it just deletes only one character. But for the SC, it deletes all of it. So you can see the SC is different from the C. And I think by that our C is over. Unless maybe you want to make, if someone says times 2, then the base is equals. Then you say C, you want it to delete both this, and you also want the answer to reset. So you can just adjust that method to also reset the answer to 0 if someone clicks it. Because, for example, let me refresh, I show you something. For example, let's say you did something like 7 times 2. Then you press is equal to 14. But you wanted to do 7 times 3. So if you press C, you change it to 3, it might look like that 7 times 3 is 14. So you want, when someone clicks this C button, you want also to remove the answer. I think that's good user experience according to me. So you can go and do that. So let's go back to our code and do that. So to do that, you can also do the same thing that we did here. We can just set the answer to 0. I'll just copy this code, set the answer to 0, then update the text content of the answer. That is the only thing that we'll do. And that way our clear function will be fine. We can just go to the browser and confirm that our clear function is fine. Just go and confirm. So if someone presses, let's say 7 minus 8 is equals to -1, then they mistake, they wanted to do 7 minus 5. If they press C, you can see it deletes the 8 and also deletes the answer. That's what you wanted. So if someone says -5, now it brings the correct answer. Yeah, I think that is fine. But now there's a bug. Let's say someone wants to do another calculation. They have to press the all clear, then they do another calculation like that. But what if someone wants to continue the new calculation without having to place this all clear? Let's say someone wants to do 5 plus. You can see it continues to concatenate to the previous expression, but that's not what we want. So we can update our calculate function. Once someone clicks the is equal sign, we want the expression to be set to an empty string once again. I think that's clear. So let's do that. And you can go back to our calculate function because that's all that was in the calculate function. So when someone clicks in is equal sign, there's this one. It says clear the expression for further calculations. So you have to clear the expression first, so that when someone does another calculation, it will continue. And there's also this thing here to append the is equal sign in the expression. Okay, you can just do that, but it can also work without that. But for good user experience, you can just add it. So to add this one, to add this is equal sign at the end, you can just go to the calculate function. Where is it? It's here. After displaying before displaying the answer, not after displaying the answer. I think you should have to add that is equal sign before displaying the answer. Or you can add it after displaying the answer. I'm not sure. Yeah, after displaying the answer, you can just add it. Expression will now be the initial expression plus an is equal sign. I'll show you how this So what we have done here, when someone clicks the is equal sign, we want it to show an is equal sign in the input. So you also have to update this like this. You have to rewrite this line of code again here, like that. I think that is clear. When someone, let us see it in the browser so that you can see it practically, because if we explain it in theory, someone might not understand it. So let's go to the browser and see what you have done first. So when someone does something like 5 times 8 and the price is equal, what you have done, we have just appended this is equal sign here at the end to indicate that 5 plus 8 is equals to 40. That's what you have done. Only that. But you have not solved the bug for if someone says 5 plus, you see it still continues there, but that's not what you want. You want it to start anew in a new string. So for that to happen, you have to first, when someone completes a calculation, you have to set the expression to an empty string once again. I think that is clear. So let's go to our code and do that. So when someone has already finished their calculation, you want to set the expression to an empty string once again. This allows us to write a new expression after finishing a calculation. You can write a new calculation again to do. Let's go to the browser and see how this looks like. And this solves our bug. So now when someone writes an expression like 7 times 8, it will say 56. Then when I write another expressions, let's say 9 minus 2. You can see now you can do multiple calculations at the same time without having to clear your you can just do multiple operations, and I think that is good user experience. So that is it for the app. But there's one thing I want you to do. There's an assignment I'll give you. So let us look at the final app, how the final app behaves. Then I'll show you the assignment. So here's the final app. This is how the app should be. You can see ours is almost, the UI is just the same, but in terms of functionality, you can see this app can do all those that you have done currently, does everything. But there's a new feature that I want you to implement in this app, and that is part of your calculation. When someone says something like 7 minus 5, the answer is 2. I want to use this 2 for my new expression. So if I say that's plus, it should say 2 plus. You can see it continues. 2 plus 5 is equals to 7. You can see it continues. But for our app, initially, when someone says something like 8 times 2, say 16, if I say plus, it does not continue this initial value, and that is a bug. So that is your assignment. Solve that bug, and you can just send your answers to me after you complete. You can just send it you can just send the link. You can just host your site and send the link in the comment section so that you can review your answer. And I think that is fine. And that is the end of this app. But you can always refactor your code. Let's go and see how you can refactor this code. So this code was just step by step, but you can just make some refactors. Like here, instead of saying expression is equals to expression plus symbol, you can use the plus equals here. You can say expression is plus equals symbol to make your code even easier to read. And you can look for other places where you can refactor your code. Also, you can add an event listener at the top here. You can say something like document.add event listener, because sometimes, but this is mostly document.add event listener. You can listen for there's an event called DOM content loaded here. It's already there. So in this event is there, you can call this function like that. Like that. You can just do something like that. So you can close. All this will now be a function. You can just close it here. Like that. I think there's still an error. Why did I not close? Did I close it wrongly? Yeah, I think I closed it wrongly. It should be bracket, then that. So it should be like that. Yeah. It should be that way. So what I've done, I've just added an event listener. It listens for the DOM content loaded event. So it looks it waits for the HTML to load. There's some cases where the HTML might have not have loaded, especially when you host this app. maybe the net is slowly, maybe it fails to load the HTML. So first, before the JavaScript is applied to the HTML, you have to wait for it to load first. That is what this line does. Yeah. And I think you can also just check for other things, and you can just add it. Also, you are free to use this app as in your portfolio. You can add it as yours. You have all the permissions. You can just modify the UI just a little bit and add it in your portfolio as part of your project. So that is it for today, guys. See you in the next video. Peace out.